Right guys, so when it comes to building muscle, one of the main things that we obviously want to be focused on is doing more than what we've done before. You know, the saying is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always got. And that's true for when it comes to muscle as well. You know, you can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting to progress or build muscle. So there is kind of overlaps, but we'll talk about that as we go through this. So what we're going to be talking about is progressive overload. Now, progressive overload can be not just increasing weight. That's something that a lot of people tend to believe, that it's just down to, you know, you increasing your weight every workout and so on and so forth. But what this tends to actually do is lead to people not getting results, potentially getting stronger, but not always leading to more muscle mass. And one of the things that I see this with a lot is, a good example would be dumbbell chest press. You know, I've seen guys that do dumbbell chest press with 40 kilo dumbbells, but don't really have much chest. And this can be something that people come across quite a lot in the gym. You know, it's like you go into the session, you've just started out, even if you're a year in, you're still just starting out with your training. And you'll start to lift the 30s, the 32.5 and work your way up to 40s. But you're not really seeing any progress. And I've experienced this myself, you know, in the past. I've done 46, 48 kilo dumbbells for 6 to 8 reps. Obviously I felt strong and it was good, but at that point my chest was nowhere near developed as what it was when I backed off and broke it down and actually started implementing progressive overload. So for an example, just if we use dumbbell chest press, the issue we have is that people will go to the 40 kilo really quickly without actually going through the progressive overload system, okay? And there is obviously different ways to implement this, but what I mean is just a basic principle of doing the 15 kilo dumbbells, allowing your body to adapt, adjust, then doing the 17.5 kilo dumbbells, allowing your body to adapt and adjust. Just because you're strong enough to do something doesn't necessarily mean that you've got the muscle mass to, you know, correlate with that. So what I did was I backed off, you know, it's like I say, we'll just use 40s as an example. I backed off down to 17.5, okay? And I went through increments. As I went through this, I was getting stronger with the movement, okay? And what I mean by that is I wasn't just pumping them out, I was isolating the chest, I was really feeling it. I was pausing at the bottom, I was controlling each rep. Whereas when I was doing the 40s and the 46s, there wasn't the same feeling, it wasn't the same experience. I was just pumping them out and just going through the motions thinking, oh yeah, I'm lifting more, so I should be gaining more. Okay, so what you want to be doing is you want to be working your way through, all right? This is amazing, but realistically, if you're doing this, you should have a very, very well-developed chest, okay? This is something you would see, you know, a 200 odd pound bodybuilder moving for 15 to 20 reps, probably, or whatever, with really controlled movement. This is not someone, if you see a 180 pound or even a 200 pound guy that's not just lean, pure muscle, if they're moving this, it's quite likely that they're not actually really doing much for their chest. You would be a lot better off backing off and, like I say, allowing your muscle to actually grow with the weight, rather than just finding a weight and then forcing it, because that tends to lead to a lack of progress, and which is quite surprising for most people. But I hope you understand that muscle isn't just, you know, if I do 40 kilo, that's it, I'm going to build a 40 kilo chest. You have to take your time with it, you have to progress towards the 40 kilo, and if you do this, you will develop better chest, okay? So this is down to obviously how people use the weight, not just necessarily the weight they're lifting. So the weight that we use is a tool. It's a tool for progression. It's a tool for building muscle. Your chest does not know how much weight you're doing. It doesn't see it's the 40 kilo dumbbells and think, right, that's it, I'm going to do 40 kilo dumbbells. My chest is going to grow. What it does is it obviously receives a stimulus, builds from that, recovers, grows. Okay, now if you've skipped a load of that, then you've got this massive gap in between where you've lost out on muscle mass just because your ego of you wanting to lift 40 kilo in the gym. Okay, and that is the main thing you need to understand as a process that you need to go through. And this is why a lot of people don't actually build much muscle in the gym. I've been there myself. I spent years doing it the wrong way. And since referring back, like going back to this a couple of years ago, I've managed to see so much more progress with my training and with my like lifting in general, and the feedback I'm getting from my body. So I highly recommend pulling back, understanding what progressive overload means, in the sense of it is a progressive system, and there's a reason why you need to progress through your lifts, not just jump to the heaviest weight you can do and just keep pounding away at that. It's not going to give you the physique you want. It's quite likely you're going to end up using other muscles to move the weight, which is going to lead to kind of imbalances in the physique, and that's something that I work hard on. I work hard on maintaining a well-balanced physique, and that's because I use progressive overload in the right manner. I don't just lift as heavy as I can, I lift as heavy as the muscle that I'm trying to work can lift. And if I am stronger than that, I don't care, I still work my way through it. I'm still nowhere near my full ability of strength, I know that, but each week I'm progressively getting better and better and better, and I'll take you guys through that maybe another time. So just some things to consider when it comes to progressive overload. So like I say, make sure that you're not just kind of jumping the gun, you're taking your time with things, and you will build more muscle. Things to consider is obviously your form. So your form is very, very important, okay? It allows consistency with the movement. Now, obviously, if you're consistent with the movement, that's going to lead to more results, because if you're hitting that and then you increase the weight and you're doing the same movement in the same way, you're now creating more stimulus than what you did before, which will lead to more muscle. So that's really important to understand that. So now if I increase the weight and my form's off, this doesn't mean I'm not going to do that weight. It means that I'm going to work on that weight until my form is as good as what it was on a lighter weight. Okay, and that's progress. Rather than, right, I can move that now, let's go up to another weight. Actually take the time with it, learn to move the weight correctly, and then go from there. Another thing is your progressive approach. So what I mean by this is there's loads of different systems, advanced training principles that you can implement when it comes to progressive overload. What I highly recommend is sticking at one, okay? Stick at one for 12 to 20 weeks, okay? This is when you're going to go through enough training cycles to really know whether this is the approach that you need to be following. If you're not making progress within that period, switch it up. It's very unlikely that you're not going to make any progress, but it's very important to make sure you stick to the same progressive approach. Don't keep mixing the approach up, don't keep mixing the exercises. Try and keep it consistent. That is what will lead to more muscle mass, okay? And then if you hit a wall, maybe change the exercise, maybe change the approach. Dips in performance or increases. No spell check, so if anything's spelled wrong. Dips and increases in performance. Now what I mean by this is, just because you have a really, really good session, you increase in the weight, feeling stronger, doesn't necessarily mean that the following week you can bump up all your weights and go for it. And that's the same for if you have a shit session and you can just about get it out. Doesn't mean that the following week you then need to decrease the weight, okay? Understand that you're gonna have dips and increases in performance, and try and get an understanding of why. You know, have you had shit sleep? Have you not eaten properly today? Is it just an off day? Or have you been training so hard over the last 12 weeks that you need to have a deload, or you need to back off a little bit for a couple of weeks? Allow your body to kind of drop off some of that fatigue so that your performance can come back through. So it's a really important thing to understand, because I think that people go too much sometimes session by session. You know, if I've done 30 kilo dumbbells last week and I come into the session I feel a bit shit, I'm still lifting 30 kilo dumbbells. You know, I will make sure that I do that. If I need to have a rest pull set or something, I will do it, because I do not want to go backwards. And I think that's what happens a lot of the time when things start to get hard and tough and your body starts to adapt and adjust. It gives you this feedback that can almost push you to go in the other direction. And that's why it's so important to track your lifts and stuff like that. Last, but definitely not least, take your time. Take your time, okay? Take your time with everything. Allow your body to recover. If you've need to make sure that you're understanding this part here, okay? Take your time with it, allow your body to recover, because that is when you're gonna build muscle. You build muscle when you're recovering, you build muscle through time. You don't build muscle during that seconds that you're doing the lift or the minute that you're doing that set. It's all about taking time and allowing your body to recover. And what this will lead to is growth. Okay, and this is obviously what progressive overload is all about. Progressive overload is about you increasing your muscle mass, getting stronger and getting more from your workouts, and obviously making sure you are progressing, because at the end of the day, that is what we train for. So if you can understand the fact that progressive overload starts from the baseline, let's just go by weight, okay, because it is something, weight is a tool. Just because you can lift 40 kilo doesn't mean that you have 40 kilo chest, all right? And I hope that makes sense, because I can guarantee that if you strip it back, start on 17 and a half or something, build your way through that, okay? It might take you a year, but your chest will develop so much more if you're just, rather than just hammering away on the 40 kilo, because your shoulders are working, your triceps are working, your body weight counts as well. So, you know, if you're heavier, then you're naturally going to be able to move more weight anyway. So it's all about isolating the muscle and working the muscle itself. Now, your muscle is obviously working if you are doing 40 kilo, but there are other muscles that are working as well, and that is the thing you need to understand, is there's assistant muscles, there's other things that come into play, there's momentum, there's control of the weight, all of these factors that don't necessarily help with chest growth, all right? Chest is just one example. Obviously, this is across the board with every exercise. I like to use the dumbbell because that's something that I see very often. I see a guy, you know, lifting 35, 40 kilo dumbbells that doesn't really have the chest to warrant lifting them dumbbells. And if you've got that strength, that means that you'll be able to do so much more through that process and build more muscle, because you should have so much control over the lighter weights that will lead to more muscle growth. Obviously, and then things that need to consider: form, making sure the movements are consistent, vital. Progressive approach, like I say, follow something for a decent period of time. Don't just, you know, chop and change just because you're not enjoying it, or you need to stick at it for you to actually see that sort of progress. You will see dips and increases in performance. Obviously, that's something that you need to, either with your coach or with yourself, sit down and figure out why they are. Could be lack of sleep, food, anything like that. And then, of course, take your time, allow your body to recover, and that will then lead to growth. When I say take your time, you should be able to build a decent amount of muscle mass. You should be able to see changes in your physique within 12 to 20 weeks. Okay, that is not a long amount, that is not a long period of time. Considering I've seen so many guys in the gym that have probably been going to the gym for 2 to 3 years and not seen any progress, but they're lifting the 40s. You know, that to me, what is your goal? If your goal is to build muscle, this is what you need to be doing. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions or anything, just drop me a message and I'll catch up with you soon.